Took off. He's been in 54 countries since 2009.
Yeah.
And literally been all over the world. He's a very hard guy to keep track of because he's just all over. But he's, we've been talking here on this podcast about the smoke screens that the enemy's trying to bring up, or even the World Economic Forum or our government, some of the governmental leaders that are just inspired by the enemy, with a demonic agenda. And sometimes people can get so focused on, oh, the devil's doing this, the devil's doing that. Oh man, we're headed for a terrible, great falling away. I mean, and they focus on everything that hell's doing, and we're clueless to what heaven's doing. Heaven is coming down. We're on the we're not on the verge of a great awakening. The great awakening's here.
For sure.
Because why don't you share what's been going on in South America with you guys in just the last few years? Because I think it's a great illustration of the great awakening that's taken place. Go ahead and share that if you don't mind.
For sure. And I'd even say, like, even in the last week, just running around here in Wyoming, there's been close to 300 healings that have happened in 1 week here in Wyoming.
Yeah.
Having people pray for each other in churches all over the state. So it isn't just for far away. Sometimes Americans think it's just for far away, but Jesus likes to do it here as well. But it's been incredible. For more than a decade, I've basically lived out of a suitcase, just traveling and preaching, 250 times a year, training and activating churches and healing and evangelism and so forth. And I was crying out to God back a couple of years ago, God, there needs to be more people doing this in the body of Christ, mobilizing the body of Christ to do this. And it started with a team. It was just me and a few friends in Ecuador a year and a half ago. It wasn't even supposed to happen. Sometimes it feels like we just stumble upon God. I found that we don't need everything organized first. Just take the first step that God gives, and God can direct as He will. And so we were going to go to Zambia, and Zambia had announced a lockdown like 12 days before we were going to go. And the only thing that we could throw together on 12 days notice was to go to these little villages in Ecuador. It was just me and a few friends. And we were told, start at 10:30 in the morning with the church, do whatever you want. And I thought, what if we just train them in healing, evangelism, get them out in the community doing it, and then train them in how to create Bible studies out of the new believers for follow-up. And I told them, I want you all to do it the exact same way, because my goal is reproducibility. Everybody in the team learns how to do all these things. And it worked far better than I ever would have thought. If I would have known how well it would have worked, I would have been doing this a decade ago. Because everybody in the team literally did it, and they saw great results. And so in 9 days, there was 225 healings and 175 prayed for salvation. But like, for example, there was a gentleman on the team who was like really nervous about healing, and he was like, Paul, that guy over there looks like he needs healing. Will you help me pray for him? And I was like, oh, come on. You didn't go fly to a different continent with me just to go watch me pray for somebody. Come on, you can go. Well, because we taught healing the exact same way, by about day 4 or day 5 of the trip, he's like, I know what you guys are going to say when you preach on healing and you train these people even before you do it. I said, great, then that means you're ready to train them. And he's like, I was like, come on, you got it. And so he did, and he trained them the exact same way. There was a woman at a club foot where the whole leg was like this, and the whole leg straightened out as he trained the Ecuadorians to pray for each other for healing, exact same way. And amazing results. He saw a tumor disappear, all kinds of stuff. And at the end of the trip, he looked at me and he says, Paul, I always had a heart for missions. He said, but I'm not a pastor. I don't sing. I don't do construction. I don't. And he had in his mind what missions looks like. And because he didn't feel like he could do any of those things, he felt like he was disqualified. But at the end of the trip, he's like, Paul, I feel like now I have tools in order to really make a difference and affect the kingdom of darkness with, God's kingdom. Mm-hmm. And so he flew back to Ecuador a month later by himself. It's another 100 healings, another 50 salvations. He's been running for it ever since. I get messages on Facebook from him. He's in Ethiopia, he's in Uganda, he's in all kinds of places using this stuff. And after that trip happened, even though the numbers weren't as big, it was great to see, 175 saved, but there could have been a big crusade or something and seen a lot more than that quicker. But I was really excited about it from the standpoint of multiplication, because everybody on the team learned how to do all those things. And so I thought, I want to try and do this bigger scale. So then that was our second team. That was Thanksgiving of a year ago, so a year and a few months. And so we had 16 people. And I just trained them all, and I said, all right, now you go do this in the churches. And I was really nervous. I was like, I don't know how this is going to work. Hope it works all right. And like the first night we had 3 churches that we were going to train. And so I took the people who had been with me in Ecuador, and I had split them up in myself. So we were all at a different church just to kind of like make sure they were doing okay. And
Yeah.
we really didn't need to worry. Like the church that I went to like make sure the gal was doing all right, 28-year-old girl. She stood up there, preached on healing the way that I taught them to, had them all pray for each other. In church of 100 people, there's 52 healings. Like, I'm talking like things they can test. I'm not talking believing in faith. I believe in faith too, but I'm talking they could test it, and they were at least 70% better. So there's 52 of those things, including a deaf ear popping open. And she was happy, but I was thrilled because this is what I was crying out to God for. Like, we need to see this thing multiplied.
Mm-hmm.
And literally everybody in the team saw great results. And in 9 days, there was 1,100 healings and 350 saved.
Wow.
And 110 Bible studies started for follow-up for the people.
Amazing.
And nobody did a healing service where nobody got healed. Always people got healed. And it was like, well, this worked. I think we're stumbling upon God here. Let's try this again. Let's use bigger scale. So that was Medellin of February of a year ago. And in 9 days, there was 3,400 healings that happened as they trained the churches
How many
all over
was
the
that?
city. 3,400.
Wow.
That's literally that's not just making gross approximations and exaggerations. That's literally at the end of each service. Like when I just preached at your church
Yeah.
that you go to last week.
You counted.
At the end of the service, I said, all right, how many things that you can count, that you can test in your body right now are at least 70% better? Do not count it if you cannot test it. And we literally counted like 38 fingers went up
Wow.
or something like that. And so that was literally the team counting 3,400 fingers in a variety of churches all over the city as they trained them. And so then we, from there, the next one, this just blew my mind what God did. Because we had the next team, and that was 21 people going to 83 churches in Barranquilla, Colombia. And I kid you not, the numbers are just staggering. And it was literally 5,913 healings that happened in
Wow.
9 days. And I'm like, how many cities on planet Earth even ever had that? And then 780 people prayed for salvation. But it's like 10 people walked with a cane, didn't have it anymore. Like, I think it was 27 tumors or cancers gone, like a bunch of blind eyes, a bunch of deaf ears, and on and on and on. That
Wow.
the team saw Jesus heal. So there's fruit because people are getting healed and saved. There's fruit because 83 churches got mobilized to do this. But there's also fruit because 20 some odd people on my team all learned how to do these tools. Again, there wasn't one person who did a service with healing and had nobody get healed. Like I said, if I would have known how well this worked, I would have been doing this a decade ago.
Wow.
And so literally now, like, I've had, I think like what, two more teams since then. Like I'm looking at this, like from November 5 to December 5, we had 2 teams and then some people did some extra churches in the middle. We literally trained 220 churches and did 500 services in 1 month.
Wow.
That's what it takes me 2 years to do. They knocked that out in 1 month.
That is an awakening.
And it's just incredible what God's doing. So,
Wow.
at any rate, it's been a privilege. I'll have all kinds of teams doing this in Latin America. I'll have a team in Guayaquil doing this in Ecuador in mid-March, another one in Santa Cruz in Bolivia end of March, another one in Colombia end of July, so on and so forth. So if this interests you, you don't have to have a lot of experience with healing ministry, but if this interests you, by all means, let me know. My name's Paul Rapley, and my webpage is paulrapley.com.